Hello. Welcome to the video for assignment 4. Um, for this video, you guys will be building the terrain for your dual chamber. So when you open the file, you're going to have just these red lines. Taryn was kind enough to go ahead and build all of the terrains for you for this video as an example, so you guys can see what each of these looks like. But you will not have these pre-built terrains. You guys will be learning how to build them yourselves. So, um, for those of you who aren't familiar with some of the language we're going to be using in this video, this is our topography. It's a word that we use to describe land and the way that it changes in elevation throughout a space. So, for reference, the video got weird, so I'm re-recording this part. But for reference, so we're all using the same language. This is an example of a topography map. You can see all of these lines. So each of these lines refers to a change in elevation. So every time, say my cursor is a person walking up this hill, every single time I hit a line, I've moved up a certain predetermined amount of height. Let's say in this example, it's 5 feet. So every time my cursor hits a line, I have walked up 5 feet. You can see on this side of the mountain, it would be a pretty consistent 5 feet every eighth of an inch or so on this map. But if I was walking up this side of the mountain, it would be a lot harder and a lot more steep because those lines are a lot closer together, telling me that that is a steeper incline. And when the lines are farther apart, that means I am walking more distance before I've moved 5 feet in elevation, making it a not as steep slope. One of the unique things on topography maps, you can also refer to them as contour maps, are these circles or closed loops. Anytime you see a circle like this where there's nothing else inside it, that means it's a peak or a valley. It can also mean you're at the lowest point of a valley, but in this example, it means a peak. But this is what we are referring to when we are saying topography. It's something you'll run into throughout your education, even throughout your life if you like to hike. But yeah, so this is topography. Now we're going to jump back into Zoom and talk about how to actually build your terrain for your site. So throughout this video, I will be referring to these with different names. This one on the left is the hill. This is the round hill, the valley, and partial bowl is this one on the right. I'm going to be showing you guys how to build the hill, but the same techniques that I'm using to build the hill can be applied to all 3 of these. And then I'm going to show you some specific skills that you'll have to use for these 2 in the middle. Basically the same things, you just go about it in a slightly different order for these guys in the middle. So to start off, I'm going to turn off the base terrain so I have what you guys are working with. So to start off, you're going to pick your thing, your topography. You're going to copy and paste it to where you want to do it. So a couple things that I recommend is right from the get-go, setting up your layers. So I have a topography layer, and then I have a topography outline, which is this big box around the topography. And then I have one for extrusions. The text is just for you guys to see like what I'm doing on each one. And extrusion outlines, we'll use that one a little bit later. I will say the text is helpful if you're someone who loses track of where you are, or you're halfway through doing this and you have to step away for a couple hours. Leaving yourself a text note on your file to say where you were and what command you were in the middle of using is super helpful. Yeah, so we're going to start with our topography. I move it over. One of the things you'll see me do throughout this as well to keep my file organized and to save me time if I mess up is every time I do something that it's either a bunch of things in a row or I'm moving to like a new set of commands, I copy and paste my object over. I'm using 200 feet as my standard in this, but you can choose what you want. And that's just so if I really mess something up, I don't have to go all the way back to the beginning. I only have to go back one step. Or if I decide to change my topography later, I have every single step, so I don't have to go back to the beginning. So just something to keep in mind. Also is good if your model crashes halfway through and you haven't saved in a while, you have some steps that you might be able to recover. So now that we're past like the more admin things, our first step is going to be to array our outline. This will give us the bounds for our site and give us kind of a template as to where we need to move each of these lines up. So I'm going to move into perspective. I'm going to turn off these guys just so we don't have too much. So you're going to take your outside line, you're going to array it. You guys know how to do this. One in the X direction, one in the Y direction. And then for the Z direction, this will depend based on which site you chose. So you're going to go through and count however many lines you have. I think for the hill, it's 21. And we know that each line that we move, that we hit is 1 foot. So you're going to type in 1 foot. And you're going to hit enter. Okay. So array everything. What I did then is I put those on the outline layer because we're going to be moving these lines up and it's helpful to see which line is what when there's this much information going on. So now I'm going to select all of these topography lines. I'm going to go back into perspective. You can either use the move command or you can use this one. Just be careful. Sometimes if you accidentally hit this little ball on the gumball, it'll extrude it instead of move it. So just be careful when you're doing that. I'm going to use the move command and I'm going to select all of them and I'm going to move them up by 1 foot. That's just so my first layer is just the square. Now, because we know that every time I hit a line, I'm moving up 1 foot, I'm going to leave this one behind. So choose whatever side of your hill is going to be the bottom and unselect that one and then move the other group up. Unselect this guy, move it up. I like to work in groups of 3 or 4 at a time. You could do this all at the same time and get all of your topography lines set up, but I find it helpful just to keep the model cleaner to do it in groups. That is especially helpful for if you're doing the rounded hill or the valley. Doing it in groups is specifically helpful for those versions. So next, I'm going to start trimming off the excess. So the bottom stays. I know that my hill's going up to the left, so anything to the right of my line, I'm trimming off. So I'm going to trim, enter. If you want to move a little bit quicker, you can use the space bar and it will repeat the command that you just did. So we'll be using that a lot, especially because we have a bunch of repetitive commands in a row. So I trimmed off all the excess and you can already see kind of a hill is being formed. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to join these. This just makes sure that all of our points are actually touching and nothing is misaligned. So join. And you will see when I join it, it becomes all the same color. Another reason having these on different layers is really helpful. Helps you kind of keep track with what's going on in your model. And now these are ready to be extruded. I'm going to wait to extrude everything at the end. But to get these out of the way, I'm going to select all of these, including the bottom one, and I'm going to put it on my extrusion outlines layer. And I'm going to turn that layer off. just so I don't have to worry about it. And it's out of my way and I can't possibly mess any of those things up. And now we're just gonna keep on moving. So 1 foot, and I'll do this example one more time. And we're gonna go through and trim. Oh. And now I'm going to join. And see if I select them in a different order, the layer changes. So whatever object you select first will be the layer that the curve goes on. Because we're changing the layer anyways, it doesn't matter, but just something to keep in mind as you're going through this. And I'm going to select, enter, select these guys and put them on my extrusion outlines. You're going to keep on doing this until you run out of lines. Once you do that, I'm going to turn this guy back on. You're going to end up with something that looks like this. Go through and just click on every single one and make sure that it's a closed curve. If it's not closed when you go to extrude it, Rhino will yell at you. So just make sure that all of those are closed. And then you're going to go through and start extruding. One thing to keep in mind when you're extruding is when you extrude, you have an option to extrude as a solid, and you can choose yes or no. So I'm going to extrude. And then I'm actually going to put this on my extrusions layer. And then up here, if you're on an Apple computer, it's going to be on the left side of your screen. But where it says solids, you want this to be yes. So see how it has a plane going across the top? If you have no, it's going to be empty, which you could fix by using cap, but cap will make it more like an empty box or like an empty soup can versus if you extrude it as a solid, it will be more like a solid block, or if you cut through a block of butter, it's solid all the way through. That's what we want. So you're just going to go through and extrude all of these. I'm not going to do that on video. You guys know how to do it. And you'll end up with something like this. Make sure you keep your extrusion curves when you're extruding, because later, if you decide that you want to manipulate your site a little bit to make walkways or paths, you want to be able to have those curves so that you can re-extrude them. Okay. So that's it for the hill. If this is the one that you're doing, or you're not doing the round hill or the valley, you can skip on to the next part of this video where I'm placing the site. But if you're doing the round hill or the valley, just stay put on this part of the video for a little bit and we'll talk about that. So if you're doing the round hill or the valley, which are these two middle ones, you're going to notice something different about these two. And it's that they have this one has a circle, which we know it means that it's the top. And this one, while it's not a circle, it does go all the way from side to side, meaning that that shape is all one elevation. So that's the top. And a little bit on this one, this would be like the peak or the valley on this partial bowl. So how are we going to make this one work? You're going to take the same steps as you did with the hill, where you're building it up layer by layer. But you have to do a couple of things different. So we're going to start with the linear valley. So you're going to do the same array, and copy your things over. Then you're going to go into top. No. Going to select, nope. You're going to select all of your topography. Oh. You're going to select all of your topography, and you're going to move it up 1 foot. Then, because on this one, we're doing where the things on the outside are the highest, you're going to start leaving the things in the middle. So you're going to leave this one and this one and move it up. And you're going to leave the 2 in the middle, move it up, leave the 2 in the middle, move it up. And you're going to keep on doing that all the way up. The only thing that's different when you're doing your trims is when you trim, instead of trimming what's on the outside, you're going to select both sides and trim what's in the middle. You're going to do that again here. Oh, just kidding. Selected the wrong one here. Trim and trim what's in the middle. Do that one more time. Okay. And then you're going to do the same thing where you're going to join these. Okay. Okay. One thing that you can do to make your life easier is select the ones that are on the same level and group these. The reason that this is going to make your life easier is when you go to extrude later, when you extrude, these will be together and you can extrude them at the same time, and you'll make sure that you're equally extruding both sides of your hill. If you don't feel like doing that for the valley, you could extrude one side first and extrude the other first. Extrude the other half second. So that's how you do the valley. It's basically the hill, but on either side. So that is that. For the round hill, a very similar approach, but you're going to be working from the outside in. So you're going to do the same thing where you array all of your do the same thing, but you array all of your outlines up. But this time, instead of working from the middle out, you're going to work from the outside in. And it's going to start very similarly to the valley, where you move everything up and then leave the ones on the outside, move everything up, leave the 2 on the outside, move everything up, leave the 2 on the outside. And you can see how I've started to do that here. The thing that changes for you on this one is once you get to these loops, you just move each of these up by 1. And each of these will just move up, and then you can delete these outline layers. And then you'll just extrude each of these. And that's how you will get this guy. If you want to do either of these inverted, So maybe you want a linear hill, or say you want, instead of a round hill, you want a like whole valley. You want like the very bottom of the valley, like a bowl. You're going to do a very similar thing that, like we did here, but instead you're going to work from the middle out and move everything up. So for this one, what you're going to do is you're going to take this and the outside one, and you're going to move, actually. So we're going to take all of these. We're going to move all of these up 1 foot. And then we're going to leave the one in the middle and move it up 1 foot. Then we're going to leave the one in the middle. We're going to move it up 1 foot. And you're just going to keep on doing that. And you'll start to see that you create a funnel looking thing. Then when you go to extrude, what you'll want to do is you'll want to pick that one and the second one, and you want to extrude these two together. What I recommend doing first is grouping these two, just so you know that you're extruding the right things together. And you'll start building up your hill. So you can see there, I have something weird going on because I picked 2 different curves that weren't on the same level. So let's try that one again. Oh, it's because so it looks like here I accidentally selected 2 that were on different levels. So let's try that one again. Extrude. There we go. And you can see I have a hole in the middle there. Extrude. And you're going to keep on doing that, and you'll start to get a valley. So that's how you invert these if you want them to go a different direction than what they're shown. Okay, so that's it for building the topography. You guys are going to have some time to do this in class. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask your professor. Now I'm going to go back to the hill for this example, but what I'm going to be doing here applies to all of the different topography options. So I'm going to go back to the hill and I'm going to bring in my dual chamber. So now you're going to place your dual chamber on your site and figure out kind of where you want it to go. What I recommend doing here is taking your topography and boolean union it, which you can do, but I think that's not the best way to do it. What I like to do instead is going to turn off my extrusion outlines. I'm going to select all of these, copy, paste over 200 feet. And I'm going to group these. That way, when I Boolean difference or anything, I don't have to select every single layer individually. I can just select the group and use that for that command. So I'm going to move it over here. And now I'm going to bring my dual chamber in. So I recommend before you bring your dual chamber in, just group or Boolean union everything before bringing it into this file. That way you're not leaving parts of your dual chamber behind every time you move it. What I also want you to do is I want you to take your dual chamber and make an outline of it. And make an outline of it and extrude that outline. So I have dual chamber. So I have my dual chamber over here. And I'm gonna copy my curve. Where did my gumball go? Like I was selecting too many things. Well, I'm gonna take my outline of my chamber, and I'm gonna bring it over here. So why am I having you do this? So the goal here is we're going to Boolean difference a hole for our chamber to sit in. But if you have something that's hollow or has a lot of openings, when you go to Boolean difference, Rhino is going to lose its mind. So if I try to Boolean difference with this, and goodness, what is going on? Okay. If I try and place this on my site exactly where I want it, so say I want it here, but now my main entrance is closed off. So I need to Boolean difference an opening so that people can actually get to the bottom of my site. If I try to Boolean difference with this, where I do Boolean difference, and I select this group, it's going to freak out because I have a bunch of openings in it. It's not a solid object. Rhino's just not going to have it. So what you're going to do instead is you're going to take that outline that I had you make of your jewel chamber, and you're going to extrude that. So it's really tall. Doesn't need to be a specific size. And I'm going to make a jewel chamber outline. And I'm going to move this guy until it is exactly where I want it to be. What you could do is you could make your outline first and then group it with your jewel chamber. So it's already in the exact spot. And then all you have to do is ungroup it from your jewel chamber. But you might explode your jewel chamber group. So I think doing it this way, even though it can be a little bit tricky to get it exactly right, is worth it. And then I'm just going to move it down. So I'm cutting through the ground. And see, right now I'm cutting all the way through, all the way to the bottom. I don't want that because your building isn't going to cut through all of the land. There's still going to be some earth underneath it. So make sure you have at least a foot underneath it. Now I'm going to Boolean difference my outline from that. And you'll see that it lets me. And now I have a nice, perfectly shaped opening for my jewel chamber. But maybe I don't like exactly where I put it. I thought it was gonna open my entire door for me, but it didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do. So what I'm gonna do instead, so now I have a perfect opening for my jewel chamber. Oh. So now I have an exact opening for my jewel chamber, but I want to make a pathway that's specific for my opening down here, and I want to make this one a little bit bigger. So to do that, we have a couple options. You can, for this bottom path, you can continue to Boolean difference by going into top view and make a line. So I want to make this a nice curvy walkway to match my dual chamber. Make sure you label your layers. So I'm gonna draw my dual chamber outline or my path outline and say I want people to come in over here. And I'm gonna offset that. And I want a 3-foot wide path. Maybe a 5-foot wide path, make it nice and generous. Awesome. So you see when I offset it, something weird's going on here. I have this weird curve. When I go into perspective, I see that my curve that I drew isn't planar. So how can you fix this? Well, with Rhino, if you don't tell Rhino where you want to snap to, it will choose, and it will almost always choose incorrectly. So you drew the plan of what you want your path to look like in top view, and now you go to perspective and it's all wonky. What we're going to do is we're going to use a set point command. What this does is it takes all those points that are all over the place and it brings them all up to the same plane. So we know, because we drew it in plan, we know our X and Y, but we don't know our Z, which is like where you live 3-dimensionally. If you do align to C plane, it's going to align it to that base plane that we build on in Rhino. We don't want that. What we want to do is we want to do align to world. And we want to pick whatever level we want the path to start on. So I want the path to start down here. And now all of this is on the same plane. So now I can go into top view, and when I offset this, like 5 feet, it's not as wonky. Maybe I do 4 feet instead. Yeah, I like that better. And then I'm going to make lines to close this. So now I'm going to go back in top view and I'm going to join these to make sure they're all one loop. And I'll also make sure that everything's on the same layer. So 2 open curves. What's going on there? One, looks like this guy didn't join to the right. To the right thing. So I'm actually going to turn off point and I'm going to turn on end and see if I can get it to actually snap to the end of that line. So that's a situation where Rhino was snapping to something else, but not what we wanted to. And here's the problem. It was snapping to my building instead of my line. So let's try that again. Let's join. It's still doing that. So let's turn our dual chamber off. And here you can see where the problem is. Oh, look, it's all joined together. So let's see. It says 1 open curve, but let's see if we can see what the issue is. Okay, so there's the issue. It is this point's all the way down there. So now we can do set point again, align to world, and align it. And now we have one nice closed curve. And that's how you fix that. So now we have an extrusion or a line that's ready to be extruded. So I'm going to extrude this guy up and I'm going to Boolean difference, delete input, no. That way, if you don't like it or you want to change it, you can always go back and fix it. Enter. And now I have pathway leading into my downstairs. So that's how you cut into it. Now say, well, actually, I want to add on to this. I want this to be a bigger, more like gracious walkway up here. You could add onto it, or you could mess with the topography here. So you have a couple different options on how to do this. But before we do anything, we're going to take this, because we did a lot, we're going to copy and paste this over. I'm going to move this over 200 feet. That way, if we don't like what we do, we can always go back. And we're also going to save, because we haven't done that in a while. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce you to two new commands. So the first thing we're going to do is ungroup so that we can mess with these layers individually. So I'm saying I want to pull this one back a little bit. I have a couple options. What I can do is I can do move face. Now with this command, with move edge and move face, you have to be extremely careful, because if you don't choose the right face, or you move in a way that's not planar or orthogonal, you're going to get some really wonky looking surfaces. So I selected the face that I want to move. Now keep your O snaps on and turn on planar. You're going to pick the point that you want, and you're going to move along the point. Near should be coming up on your O snaps. And you can start moving your, oh, it looks like I copy and pasted in the same spot. And you can move your surface back. So now my path is a little bit wider. But say maybe I want this, instead of this looking like this, I want this being like straight. I want this to curve out and give me like kind of a balcony, but it's made out of land. Okay, we can totally do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to find where this line is. So this is from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is the 12th one from the top. We're going to go back to where our lines are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this one, I'm going to copy, Control V, and I'm going to move this, 200, 200, 200, 200. So I think that's 1,000 feet. So I'm going to move this one 1,000 feet. Oh, no, 1,000. I think I overshot it. Let's try moving it back 200. Okay, 200 feet. And yep, that's the right one. So now I'm going to do is I'm going to take this curve and I'm going to edit it. I'm going to pull this guy out. And maybe that's all I want. Maybe I want to add more control point. I'm going to click this. Ooh, you're going to click this guy. You're going to mess around with where you want it. So I want it to be a little bit more off-centered, and I want it to go almost to the edge. Good. So I'm going to delete this layer, and I'm going to replace it with this new one. Oh, didn't do that right. Extrude curve, and I'm going to replace it with this guy. Now I'm going to put this one on my extrusions. And now I have modified my site. But now this is still, this doesn't have the Boolean difference that So it's cutting, you can see it's going through my building. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to take my outline and I'm going to extrude it. I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to line it up so that it's cutting so that I can Boolean difference it and get that opening for my building back. So we're going to do Boolean difference. Take that guy, delete input. In this case, I'm going to hit yes because I'm done. And then see, now we have a path going to our lower part of the building and path going into the upper part of our building. And you'll play with this a bunch of times if you want to change the topography so that you have stairs going up here, or maybe you want another path coming from the top. You can play with that. Once you're happy with your topography, what I recommend doing is going like this, Control V, moving it over another 200 feet, and Boolean unioning it once you're happy. That way, if you move it or make 2D, it's all one object. And there you go. So that is how you build topography and modify it in Rhino. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.